In this video, we're not really going to add any new features or code, but we're going to talk about another important part of programming, which is your documentation. So we've informally talked about how to add comments, and you should always be doing that in your code where it's appropriate. But what we're going to take a look at is standard Java documentation. And it has an abbreviation. It's called JavaDoc for short. So what I'm going to do is, this is where I would probably send you. Google for a JavaDoc tutorial. And generally Oracle is a good resource since they now own Java, so you know you're getting some official stuff there. And what you can do once you get to that tutorial, you might have wondered, right, if you end up saying like, okay, how do I use the Java string class? And you go and you look at the documentation for it, you'll notice that the documentation all tends to look the same. So no matter what place you're looking at, you have the same HTML format as far as like the constructors show up, you got methods in here, method summaries. When you click on a link, it takes you to a bigger description, which gives you its signature. You know, it tells you a little bit about the method, its parameters, all this kind of stuff. And there's good reason that it all looks the same. Obviously, one convenience is that if you're used to reading the same style of documentation, then you get better at finding what you want. You don't have to navigate a new style. And it keeps everybody on the same page about what they should have in their documentation. So that tutorial on how to write them is what I'm going to try to just quickly give you an overview for. And the first thing that you need to know about are the tags. So if I click on the tag conventions, this is the way you define something in your code. And you might have already seen this, or maybe you noticed the author tag. That tells you who the author of your class is, for example. You may want to put a version in. These ones I will go through with you today, the parameter and the return types. If your code throws an exception, then you can also add these tags to it. But the tags that you're looking for is how you're going to convey more important information than just your description. So we'll give you an example just so you can refer to it. Another good example, there is one at the bottom here. And this one shows you a fully worked example, and I'll do one with you from the beginning. But basically it illustrates a few things. The first is that the different comment for Java documentation is a double star here. So this would be our normal comment /star with just a single, and mouse isn't letting me select it, but it would be just /star. The Java documentation is started with /**. And what will happen is most good editors will then, when you hit the enter key, just start tagging an extra star along the way like this, so each line begins with a star. So all of the Java documentation is written in here, and it stops just like normal. So there's the ending tag. And again, the important thing here is that by identifying it as Java documentation, it knows it's this industry standard that's used in Java, not just your regular comments. So when you're doing that, you can actually tag in HTML. So here's some of the HTML if you want to help format your code. If you already know about HTML and you know how to add the tags, it certainly makes your code more readable. This is an unordered list tag, and these are list indices. And really what that means is we're writing bullets here. So if we were to actually look at it, this would be bulleted text. And an unordered list is just the blob, but there's no number to it. An ordered list would give me numbers like 1, 2, 3. So that gives me some background on what this class is doing in Java, and here's where you can see the tags that I referred to earlier. So the author of this class is Sam Xiao, and it looks like there's Arthur Van Hoff is another one. And they're using more tags here like version and since. And some things that we're going to do today is we're going to look at the parameters and the return tag. Those are the tags that tell me if I'm going to use this code, what do I need? So here's the method. The method is called drawImage. One of the parameters is image. That's it right there. So Java knows that this image belongs with this parameter, and if you're looking at the documentation, that's the image to be drawn. There's also the x and the y. That's the next two integers here, and this is again telling me how to use this method drawImage. So this is where, again, if you need to refer to it, it's in the oracle.com's JavaDoc tutorial. But we'll try making our own, and I'll show you how a JavaDoc tool is really great for use to give you that industry standard look in your documentation. JavaDoc, by the way, is actually one of the utilities that downloads with your Java when you download the Java development kit. Everybody gets one, and you don't have to have a special program to do it. It's provided for you when you use Java. So I'm going to go in here to the alien, and we'll use this one as an example. So you go to your code like you normally would, only now we're not going to really add code, we're going to document it. And it's a good process to keep up on top of while you're doing your code, because frankly it can be a little bit annoying to do everything at the very end. So here's the first JavaDoc that you may not have seen before, but you'll see here's the double star, and all of the code that's in here is showing me what would be JavaDoc. So you can see the @author and the @version tags. So here I'll put my name in, and the version here, maybe this is my first crack at it, maybe it's a beta version, so I'm going to call it 0.1. And the requirement that I'm going to give for us is that we have one description for the class that tells us, why someone might want to use the class, what it does, and every method you create, including your constructor, should also be commented. So that's what I'm going to do for you here and explain what I'm doing. So my description of the alien class, I don't want it to say that here. I'm going to say this is the enemy of my hero. They will move to a goal and then remove themselves from the game when they get there. The hero can be killed if an alien touches it. And I'll show you where this appears in the documentation. So maybe I want to say game over. So this would give someone an indication if they want to use my alien class. Maybe they're going to make a new subclass or something like that. But here's where I'm going to add the JavaDoc, and remember it's /** this time, and watch what happens when I hit enter. It fills everything else in for me, and every time I hit enter, like I said, it starts the next line with a star, and that's another way to check in and know that you're actually making JavaDoc, not just regular comments. So in the alien constructor, I'll say an alien must be given a goal when it is created. The goal it will move to is represented by the x and y coordinates in the constructor. So that's what I'll put here, and because I'm going to refer to this x and y, I'm going to actually say I have a parameter. That parameter is called x, and this is so that when someone reads my code, when I do my documentation, it's going to link this x here with this comment here. Again, it's being very specific about how to use the alien constructor. So I guess just for good style here, I'll make this a capital A since we're dealing with the class. And I'll say the x coordinate of my goal location. And the y coordinate of my goal location. So it may seem obvious here, but it's not always obvious. It also gives you the opportunity to say things which we call preconditions and postconditions. So I might say all aliens must be green or something like that. It doesn't make any sense, but what I could do is I could put in here a precondition so that if somebody was using the alien class, they would know, oh, before I can use it, I have to obey this precondition. So before you use it, what conditions must be true about an alien? Postcondition is when you're done, what would you know about the alien? So usually that's what's talked about, is a little description and if there's any pre or post conditions to your code. So for example, like if we were calculating the area of a circle, we'd say precondition radius is greater than 0. It's just because we wouldn't want to do a negative radius for a circle. Okay, So that's my constructor. This is the act method. Now the act method doesn't actually take any parameters, so I don't need to keep track of them. And it's a void return type, so there is no return in it. So in here, whatever the alien wants to do, let's just be more specific here. We'll get rid of this default code that's added by Greenfoot, and I'll say this is a goal mover that removes itself when it reaches its goal. So this basically would tell the person, how is it different from the parent class? If it reaches its goal, it removes itself from the world. And I can understand some of you might be wondering, like, why would you do that when it's right there in the code? That's the whole point, remember, is that you don't want to have to decipher what someone's code is doing. You just want to give them the English version so that you're the one who has to do the implementation. The person using your code just reads the documentation. It also stops the game if it touches the hero. Okay. So I certainly hope you have a better game over method than me, but you know, you could display like a message or some points, do some other things in this game. Maybe you change the level even. But my game over, all it's going to do is it's going to stop the Greenfoot simulation. I guess in our words, that's the game. And remove the hero. So anyone can call game over, and they might want to know what will happen if I do that. Well, that's what it'll do, and here's the code. The explode method. This should be called when an alien is going to be replaced by an explosion. So I have some documentation here. What I'll show you now is up here in the view it says source code. If you change it to documentation view, it's going to run that JavaDoc program. It's going to scrape through my code. And now what you'll see is, well, just give it a minute here while it's working, is it's built that little HTML page that I was referring to earlier. So it actually shows me here that aliens are goal movers, those are actors, and those are objects. So it gives me a picture of that. It tells me about the class, the enemy of the hero. That was the description I wrote before. So you see all that Java code is pulled out and only the methods in Constructor are kept. But now somebody can click on it and say, what does explode do? And there's my explode method and what it does. My act method is overriding the goal mover, so it's actually automatically tagged that in for me. So this now I've been given the documentation on, and I'm actually going to switch back and show you that you actually have access to this. So if I go into the space project now, so this is going to be my where your Greenfoot is stored. Now there's a new folder called doc, and that's the JavaDoc. So in here, see all these documentation files? That's all the stuff that was just created by the JavaDoc program in HTML. So now if I wanted to publish my program, I could take these files and the folder and put it on the internet, and then I would have accessible to my team or whoever I was building with the documentation, just like you find for all the other classes we've worked on. There is one other thing I want to show you, and it wasn't a part of the alien class. So, and that is when I return something, that's another thing that you should be able to do. So for example, one of the methods we have, if I was to go and look at the hero class, was the getSpeed method. And now that it has a return type, most of our methods were void. Some of them were booleans and some of them were ints. But there's actually another tag that I would like you to use at minimum when you're writing your methods. So parameters, as well as describing your class and your methods. In here what you're going to write is, so quick description. So you can change this through the set speed method. Maybe I'll move it here just so it's easier for you to read on the screen. So there's my description, and the new tag, there's no parameter inside these brackets. However, there are parameters in these brackets, so this one I would have to use a param tag. But what I was saying is a new tag we haven't talked about is the return tag. So what does this return? The speed of the hero being used every time it moves. So if you remember when I processed the keys for this actor, I was using that speed to tell me how much I should move the location of the ship. So, excuse me. That's what I'm telling the person who wants to know, okay, this method hands me an integer, but what is the integer? This is a simple method. You probably could have figured that out from just reading the title of it, but it's the principle of it, that when you do your method, you document it properly, and that is that the parameters as well as the return tags are all documented. Now I haven't done anything in here except for the get speed method, so that one's got my descriptions, and now you can see here it says returns. So here's what I said about it, and it says it can be changed through the set speed method, returns the speed of the hero being used every time it moves. So another good programming practice that I'll just add in here, it's our last tag that I would show you, is sometimes when things are related, like I said, it can be changed through the set speed method. You can use the C tag as like a C also. There's many ways you can do this. One is just to put plain text like this. And if I go to look at the documentation here, it's actually just going to show plain text. So not too exciting, but at least it helps get somebody where they're going. So down here, it'll say see also set speed. So that's fine. You can just refer to it that way. Of course, you know, we'd like to go there directly. And if you're using the method name and you use this hashtag, that hashtag means it's going to refer to the set speed method in this class. So now when I go for it, that hashtag is going to actually hyperlink it for me. So if you're connecting it to another method in your class, that's one way you can do it. And now you're going to see if I go to get speed, it'll say a hyperlink now, set speed. And when I click on it, it takes me right there to that method set speed. So that's more convenient from a documentation standpoint for you to be able to look through your code. And if you're not sure, you know, what would be a good place to get more info about a tag, not just the short list of tags we dealt with, but there is also in this tutorial here, if you click on the tag conventions, it's not just these tags that are here. It also gives you the description when you scroll down. So for example, here is the author and everything else that it has about it. And you can also take a look at some of the other documentation they have here. So the reference pages are very helpful for you when you're not used to using it. But for our class, I'll just go back here and show you one more time. We need to have every method. So for example, this method would need a Java documentation, and that includes its parameters, and if it returns something, it should also have a return statement like this one does here. So every method, including constructor, and some sort of header here that tells me what your class does. So when you're done commenting it all, you can switch to the documentation view and it'll run the JavaDoc interface so that you end up with that nice documentation. And that's something I'm going to expect to see that you've done as a good programming practice, that you are taking proper documentation of your classes. Okay, so that's JavaDoc. The last thing I'd like you to add to your first project.